hold on. I'm going to start recording, and I also want to go live on Facebook, and we'll get going. So today today we are talking with Ann Pillsbury, who's going to talk with us about managing imposter syndrome during your job search. And I'm just getting this going, but as I get ready and record and publish everything here, just want to remind you all that these are the Hangout Habits. We're live and online every Thursday at 10 a.m. We give you actionable and practical job search tips. And our goal is to help you move along in your job search. We do have an accountability program. We're running our first cohort right now. We're learning a lot, and we will run another in September, probably at the end of September. So if you're not in one now and you're interested in joining, go to our website and sign up. We're very excited about being able to offer this as a new program. If you're not part of our community page, I urge you to join. We've got great resources and conversations happening there, and connect with us on LinkedIn. In August, we are going to take a hiatus from live presentations, but we will keep the cadence of our weekly presentations up. So make sure to check in for replays. We've got weekly scheduled calls of our greatest hits. And of course, you can always go to the community group to see more of these. And then of course, in September, we will recommence our live and online calls. So we realize in the summer that people really want to, take a little bit of a break. And so we want to give everybody a chance to get caught up with all the great content we have out there, and then we'll start again in September. So now I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to hand it over to Ann. She's going to talk about managing imposter syndrome while job searching. I'm particularly interested in hearing this because, like many people, I suffer from this. I think, well, who am I to say, oh, this is how you should do X, Y, and Z? So I'm very, very excited to hear Ann's remarks. I've seen her slides, and I think this is going to be a super valuable session. So I'm going to stop sharing and let Ann take over.
Hey everyone, welcome. Thanks for joining. Now let me see if I can get my, oh, it says I can't share.
Oh, hold on.
It always remains, you know, no matter how good we get at Zoom, right? There's always
That's
like, do you
right.
see my screen? Do you see my screen?
Hey, Ann, do you want me to just drive the slides from my side?
Sure.
Okay, why don't I get them up? And I was going to say, while I'm digging those out, maybe you can introduce yourself.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, well usually I do this, but you know.
So my name is, as you know, is Ann Pillsbury. I'm an ACC certified coach. I have 4 kids, ages 22 through 11. I took a 16-year break to raise my family, and then got certified as a coach. I'm the principal at Ann Pillsbury Coaching, help Gen X women navigate their midlife awakening and design their next chapter around what matters most. Passionate about this. I'm a serial midlife reinventor, having roles in marketing, people operations, and people development and coaching. I am a recovering perfectionist and codependent, and I am continually working on managing my inner critic or imposter because she is brutal. And so I've been, that's been a real journey for me. So I like to share what I've learned with others to hope that they can learn as well.
All right.
Are we ready to share?
We sure are. Hang on just a minute. Is that showing up?
Yep.
Here we go. All right. You just tell me when to click and I'll click.
Do you want to put it in present mode? Yeah, awesome. Oh, but we see her. That's weird.
Oh, are you seeing the whole thing?
Yeah, we see the whole thing.
All right. Oh, well.
Oh well. Okay. So managing your inner critic during your job search. The next one. So I just went through this. This is all about me. Oh, there you go. There we
Yay.
go. And we could just move on to the next one since I just went through all.
All right.
Okay, so what is your inner critic? Your inner critic is that internal voice of self-doubt that sounds like your wise self, but isn't. It's that inner tape that tells you you're not ready, not qualified, too old, put in whatever you want here. Too fat, too thin, too pretty, too ugly, all those little limiting beliefs that go flying around in your head. But they all add up to you are not enough for what you want in your life. Next, please. So when we talk about our inner critic, there are lots of labels. There's the imposter, and the specific thing about the imposter is a little more like, who am I to be in this role? I am just lucky to have the experience I am in. I don't know what I'm doing, even though you probably do. The perfectionist, and this is my weak Achilles heels, is everything needs to be perfect. And where the danger is in this is that you are so worried about everything being perfect that you never accomplish anything. It stops your creativity, it stops your momentum because you're so hyper focused on everything being just right. The expert is somebody who has to know everything about everything. And if you don't know everything about everything, then you know nothing. The Superman, we all know this in our culture. It's the myth of having it all, having perfect job, the perfect family, the income, all that kind of stuff, which is another unrealistic expectation, but driven by that feeling of not having enough. And then the workaholic as well, where you're just always working. And you get your identity from that. You're always feeding your inner critic and what is lost by that process in your family life, your personal life, etc. Next, please. So one of the main things that we always hear, especially with returners, is I lack confidence. It's a thing that we say often, and it's this living belief that there's something that we have to obtain and then we'll be ready for the next step. This is super dangerous because you put your plans on hold for this concept of readiness or the elusive confidence. But the truth is we all have self-doubt, and people who you see playing big in the world, doing their biggest careers are always grappling with it. And I put this Michelle Obama on there because she talks about this as something that she struggles with. And I've actually heard Barack Obama talk about it as well. And like, you look at these people, you're like, what do you mean you have an imposter syndrome? But this is a universal thing. Next, please. And the danger of the inner critic, it will steal your dreams. When you start to take steps towards your deeply held aspirations, the closer you get to your zone of genius, the louder and more the cunning the critic will get. And so, in your job search, you will start to feel, you will say, well, I'm not ready, or I need to do this, or I need to do that. And you'll also notice that maybe you have aspirational things that you don't even think that you can do. Like, I remember when the first time I was looking for a job, I was like, oh, well, I would love to work for, a cool creative company that was a startup that in a marketing department, but that will never happen. But by listening and separating my critic from myself and being creative and figuring out who I needed to meet and how I needed to be smart, I was actually able to secure an internship for myself, which I actually then shifted into a full-time job and was with that job for 4 years and learned so much. So if I listened to my critic, I would have never taken that chance, and learning how to kind of manage my way through that really allowed me to get what I wanted. Next, please. So why do we have an inner critic? It's biological. We are hardwired for connection. If any of you guys have read any Brene Brown, she talks about this a lot. And we have this biological drive for belonging, makes the inner critic as a strategy for protection. It's the part of us that wants to stay safe from potential emotional risk. We don't want to fail. We don't want to hit criticism. We don't want to be disappointment and ultimately rejected from society and our tribe. It's cunning and it's brutal because it's desperate to do its job. It's about, in its mind, it's about evolution. It speaks with viciousness and volume whenever we expose ourselves to a vulnerability, which triggers fear or embarrassment or rejection, failure, or pain. So, it doesn't want us to play bigger because that's scary, and we will face those things as we move forward in our careers and lives. Next, please. So wouldn't it be nice if we could just get rid of this critic or smash him down or her down? But you can't. What you can learn how to do is quiet it, and it's a daily practice. I have been aware of my critic for probably 10 years, and it's still a daily practice. Your first thing you want to do is be able to identify the critical chatter that is in your head and that it's separate from your true voice, thus disarming its power. And then you want to practice allowing that critic to run its script without taking direction from it. You can hear it. Oh, there's a typo there. Without letting it determine your choices. See, my perfectionist just came out. So Tara Moore is a great author. She wrote this book called Playing Big, and she does a lot of work. She does a whole chapter on your inner critic, where she comes up with some exercises that I'm going to want to that I will share with you next. So I just wanted to let you guys know about this book, and she goes beyond inner critic. It's like 7 steps to help playing bigger in your life, and so I highly recommend it. But I wanted to give credit where credit is due. So next one. So how to identify your inner critic from your wise self? Your inner critic is mean, rude, and binary. So if you are saying to yourself, if you think you're hearing your critic, imagine saying what you're saying to yourself to your child. That's a big thing for me. It's like I can be so mean to myself, and I say things I would never say to anybody else. That's one way I can tell that I'm hearing my critic. This is where he gets a little bit cunning. It sounds like the voice of reason. It would be irresponsible for me to take that job because it, doesn't pay me any money, or I couldn't go off and start my own business, or, it sounds like the voice of reason and pretends to be in your best interest, but you need to be curious about this and come from it from a more heart-centered space. There's the always you aren't ready yet. And I see this with my clients a lot. I need to get another certification. I need to go back to, there's a lot of like, I need to learn, I need to practice. I need that confidence trap. But there's something in being in action, even though the action's imperfect, that helps you learn and makes you more ready. The inner critic can feel like a tape. I have some, I'm trying to think of what they are, but especially like around personal image for me, like I have the tape around my waist that goes on all the time. I have been listening to it for, I'm 30 years, it says the same thing. And I'm like, okay, that was not true. And that is my inner critic driving me insane. It's irrational, but persistent. And may be inspired by critical people in your life, your parent, your spouse, a sibling, a boss. For me, my mom was never a critic to me, but she has a really harsh internal critic that she makes external all the time. So I was raised with somebody who's always kind of putting herself down and talking about, in a negative way. So I very much inherited that as the way I think that you were supposed to be, because that was what I was modeled for me. So go next, please. So practices for managing your critics. So this is kind of what we mentioned before, starting by noticing, labeling, okay, what's going on here? That's my critic. As you're able to notice and label, working on really separating the I from the inner critic. And this is hard to do when we're moving fast. This is great what a meditation practice is helpful at, or getting out in nature and connecting, having that space to really connect to yourself and get away from the critic voice and really start to learn and grow that relationship with your true voice. It can be fun to create a character that personifies your critic. And another thing is to really have a lot of compassion for your critic. They're just trying to keep you safe, but it doesn't feel like that time.
Hey, Anne, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Because I certainly have this, and where I go for big things in my life. How do you discern between the rational voice and that inner critic that's keeping you back? Because there are rational voices in your head saying, well, I probably shouldn't do that, versus I need to go for this. Is there kind of a trick?
Yeah. So when you're saying, well, maybe I shouldn't do that, come with it to it from a place of curiosity and problem solving instead of I can't do it. So I
Mm,
will leave my job and start my own business. I can't possibly do that. I have kids to raise. I mean, I have to support my children. I wouldn't have health insurance. I can't do this.
right.
So what would be a place from curiosity would be like, well, what would I do? What would be my next step about learning about what a business would look like and what I would need to get in place?
Yeah.
How do people get insured? So
Right.
it's doing the exploration before you cut yourself off at the ankles.
Got it. Got it. And we have another question from the chat. Tova's asking, upskilling a lot of people who are returning, especially, are told to upskill or to go get a certification or to do more. And how do you balance that advice with the advice about positive self-talk, saying, I am good enough and I have what it takes? Do you have any insight into that?
Well, I actually, Nancy, I'm curious what you say about that. I mean, I do think there's a certain amount of level of skills that you need to be current in the workplace. But then I also think there's something about getting in there and practicing and getting the experience before before you invest a lot of time in actually getting certified in things. I mean, I've
Yeah,
learned project management from the ground up from experience. I have not been a certified project manager.
right. I think it
I don't,
depends on the discipline,
yeah,
honestly. I do think that there are specific disciplines. Project management is a perfect example, where having that certification gives you a running start on other candidates. But, I've also read that 50% of project managers don't have a PMP. But then, for something like Agile or Scrum, like if you're looking at
yeah.
a product management role, those are things, that you can go get certified in. It doesn't cost very much. You can do it low or no cost if you use, your public library resources. And I think that there's something to be said for life experience. Um,
Yeah.
you can go, and we're going to talk about this in September. We're going to talk a little bit about tangible, transferable skills. Like, how do I talk about what I have learned in this part of my career, and how do I talk about it in translating it when I'm looking to a new job? So, um, personally, I go dual track on these things,
Yeah.
where I like to say, let's, let's take a look at what we've got currently, and look at go talk to people and look at roles with what you've currently got. And then, if people say, well, I'd love to we have somebody from a past Career Catalyst cohort, actually, who's interviewing for a job. And they said, oh, well, we really want you to have, we want you to be a certified Scrum Master. And she had
Yeah.
just gotten this done. So in those cases, they still talk to her, and she said, oh yeah, another candidate, somebody who just got a job, is just finishing her PMP. She'll be done next month. So she doesn't actually have the certificate yet. And the job is predicated on her finishing this out. But so it kind of depends. I'm a big believer in go out and talk early, right? And
Yeah,
because
well, and I think that's you point out a really good point there is getting out and talking to people. And I think then you can identify
yeah,
if it's necessary, but and Amanda put up something here about, entry
yes,
level job developers, you need 3 years of experience. Um, where that may be true, if it's getting out and talking to people and getting past the job description, because we cut ourselves at our ankles. Women do this all the time, right?
yes,
If we don't qualify for every single one of the job roles, we don't apply. But
yep.
now something in that is so specific, like web development,
Yes.
maybe you do need those things experience, but I think it's really, it's always about the networking.
Absolutely. And Carolina and Amanda are touching on this, where Carolina is saying
Yeah.
she gets overwhelmed when she reads the job position descriptions and she's passing opportunities because she doesn't have all the quals. So, Anne, you alluded to this, and I just want to share a little more about the research. When there's a job description out there, men look at it, and if they see that they have 50%, right, so half of the qualifications, they'll apply for the job. Women look at 80%, and you got to look at it like a guy and say, nope, I've got half of that, and what I don't know, I'll learn. And that's a design thinking kind of
Yeah.
mentality. And maybe that belies my liberal arts roots of, what I don't know, I can find. But do a 50%er, right? If you look at it and you say, I can do at least half of those things, great, apply for the job. I can tell you, as someone who has hired, over my career, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, when job descriptions are written, it's for the perfect candidate. The perfect candidate doesn't exist. Right. And
Right.
so, the best case scenario is you're going to get like a 70% match. And so, for you, as somebody who's looking, you need to go in and say, okay, how much of this can I just nail from the ground up? How much of it can I say, yes, I've done stuff like that, and here's how I talk about it? How much of it is you say, I can learn that, right?
Yeah.
And managing your inner critic. Managing your inner critic is tricky. Carolina says, how honest should you be in an interview
Yeah.
about that? Well, Anne, you want to take that one?
Well, I don't know, Nancy. I don't think you have to talk right at it, but I think that, I don't out yourself, but if you're asked something specific, then you come up with an answer around how you could go about attaining that knowledge. Nancy, what would
I
you?
always think of this as, in a sentence, you have the 50, when you structure a good sentence, it's 50 cent, 5 cent, a dollar, right? Where you put something really compelling up front, you bury the bad news or the weak part in the middle, and then you finish with something really, really strong, because usually the recipient only hears the last thing. So if you're interviewing for a job where you say, you know what, I have all of the skills for this marketing management job. I am learning how to become a project manager, and I have extensive experience where I've cut costs and increased productivity by 25%. That's the way to
Beautiful.
talk about it, right? And that, in every interview, of course, is different, but you want to capitalize on your strengths and you want to minimize your weaknesses. Never lie, right? But don't walk in with the weakness, right? Let's see, we have a couple of other questions here. Judith's asking, she went back to school to get a degree and change careers. Before she did that, she made a list of her transferable skills. And when she gets discouraged in the hunt, she pulls that list. But I think this is, Judith, this is super
Yeah.
savvy. I do that.
So genius. And this is a great way to manage your inner critic too, right? It's
Right.
talking about the things you can do about instead of the things, and another great thing to do is where you've gotten great feedback, keeping a little journal of the great feedback you've gotten in other things in your life so that you keep that super clear in your crisp in your mind.
We have one more, and then
what's, yeah.
Oh, with Vashili, one time a recruiter asked specifically, what part of the job you can surely do? I think that's great, because you just walk in and say, here's what I can, here's how I'm going to hit the job running. Sometimes they'll talk about it, I used to, as a 30, 60, 90. What are you going to do in the first 30 days? That's the stuff you can do right away. What are you going to do in 60 days? What are you going to do in 90 days? And that's how you can parse out, what are the things, and they're also, interviewers also getting a sense of how you manage and organize your time, right? But don't let your inner critic prevent you from having that conversation.
Well, another thing I just thought of, Nancy, is talk about, if you don't know, talk about an experience of how you gained knowledge, so maybe you bring up an example of, one time,
Yes.
I don't know I have a ton of experience in this, but I have a track record of being able to do this, this, and this. And I have complete confidence this would be the same situation.
That's
I'll get it
right.
handled.
Yeah, that's a great way to talk about that.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
let's see. Let me move on to the.
Okay. So don't try to argue with your critic. I love this little image. This is like my favorite slide. I mean, I feel like that actually most of the days these days.
Yep.
So, your inner critic is really your inner child. It's that bully, like the bully from middle school who is the bully because they're sad and insecure inside and they're trying to protect themselves. So instead of trying to attack it or be mean to it, acknowledge it and reassure it. And I mean, I really do this, and I encourage my clients to do this too. Thank you for protecting me. I hear you. I know this is a big step. It feels super scary, but I got this, and I'm going to be okay, whatever happens. And that just kind of helps disengage. So I wanted to provide you with some prompts that you guys can talk about in your, or you journal on these. I did these for myself over the weekend, and I realized my inner critic is Elena from Little Fires Everywhere. I was like, where have I met that woman? I was like, oh, it's that show. So journaling questions around, does the inner critic take information from somebody in your life? Does she echo an external critic, your mom, your husband, your old boss? I also have a critic that's my husband, for sure. Sometimes they have cultural sources. For me, I have like the perfect WASP stereotype where like I should be living like in the suburbs in a big house with a rich husband and perfect kids who all went to Ivy League schools. That's not my life, but that's kind of what that thing says. Are there any other cultural archetypes for your inner critic that asks you to live up to? And then creating a character to personify your inner critic, to bring that voice to mind. Are they old? Are they young? Were the person, if they were a person, what kind of person would it be? So that way you can like really get clear on it, and you can also have a little laugh sometimes. And Tara Moore also does some other prompts that help you to kind of dig in there and dive. Are there any other questions? Okay, great.
I had to unmute myself. I forgot. I'm like, oh, Carolina has a great question.
Why are men more confident?
Well, there's a whole range of.
Because we live in the patriarchy. You know what? Our world is set up for men. I mean, just the way everything runs is not, and it's,
yeah.
And we're trying. We are still trying to fit ourselves into a male way of running things, and hopefully things will change. But that's kind of what we're stuck with right now. So I think naturally men fit better into a system that is made for and by them.
Yep. Oh, and Carolina, I totally agree. She's like, I consider myself a feminist, and I still suffer from this. Me too. I ran $1 billion business, and I would run into meetings and think, who am I kidding? Like, why do I think that I can do this? Well, it turns out I was really good at it. But I think a lot of people, even guys suffer from this. They don't talk about it as readily.
They do. Everybody has, because it's that biological, as I said, it's this biological drive. It may look different or feel different. It may show up in different, maybe it doesn't show up in their career. Maybe it actually shows up with them and their families being emotional, vulnerable with their wives and children, or, wherever it might show up for them. Right.
Well, so Anne, did you want to use the inner crit? What can you remind me what the prompt is? I'm going to put folks in breakout rooms so that they can.
Oh, should I copy and paste it? I had the prompts were at the end, so I'll just put them. In the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Sorry. Two. Hold on, my Zoom is not. Okay, there we go.
Okay. There we go. All right, so it's in the chat. I'm going to open the rooms now, and you can use the talk a little bit about how your inner critic takes inspiration from someone in your life, and then how do you create a character that will help you go from there. Thank you. If you've got to drop, that's okay. We're really glad that you're here. Make sure to join our community page. We'll be running reruns in August, and we'll be back with live presentations this week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much for coming.
Those groups are so fun.
Yeah, they are, and I'm just there's people jump out there. We'll put them in breakout room 2 so they can talk with each other. That was great.
Yeah.
Whenever you give a presentation, I'm like, oh, I have learned so much.
Do you want to stop recording?
Yes. Hold on 1 second. Thank you for reminding me.